Hello and assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my channel and I am Mehreen. In the previous video we have discussed the story of Oedipus Rex, the Theban king. Now we know that Oedipus has been exiled from Thebes. After Oedipus's downfall, his sons Eteocles and Polynices fight for control of Thebes. Here, one thing is very important to know that Jocasta and Oedipus had 4 children: Polynices, Eteocles, Antigone, and Ismene. 2 sons and 2 daughters. The brothers ultimately kill each other in battle. Creon, who is Jocasta's brother, their uncle, and the new king of Thebes, declares that Eteocles will be honored with a proper burial for defending the city, while Polynices will be left unburied and unmourned as a traitor. According to the myth, Polynices was declared a traitor by his brother Eteocles too, who was a ruler of Thebes. The story goes that Polynices and Eteocles were the sons of Oedipus, we know that, and they had agreed to alternate in ruling Thebes. However, Eteocles refused to give up the throne when his turn was over, leading Polynices to gather allies and launch an attack on the city. This led to the famous 7 against Thebes. Eteocles saw Polynices' actions as treacherous and declared him a traitor. The conflict ultimately resulted in the deaths of both brothers at each other's hands. Now Creon, their uncle and the new king of Thebes, declares that Eteocles will be honored with a proper burial for defending the city, while Polynices will be left unburied and unmourned as a traitor. Antigone and Ismene both are the daughters of Oedipus Rex. Antigone, deeply troubled by Creon's decree, she believes it is her divine duty to honor her brother's memory and ensure he receives a proper burial. Regardless of the law, Antigone confides in her sister, Ismene, but Ismene is afraid to defy Creon's edict. Antigone is bold and brave, while Ismene is a very timid and shy type of girl. Despite Ismene's warnings, Antigone decides to take matters into her own hands. She secretly buries Polynices, performing the necessary rituals to appease the gods. However, Creon's guards discover her actions and arrest her. Because Creon had appointed his guards on the dead body of Polynices, that nobody would ever bury him or perform the rituals. Antigone is brought before Creon, who is determined to make an example of her in front of other Thebes people. Antigone defies Creon, and there is a very hot argument between both of them, asserting that she followed the laws of God and you are not God. She is following the laws of God, not human laws. Creon sentences her to death, condemning her to be entombed alive. Another aspect of the story is very important to be mentioned. Haemon, who is Creon's son and Antigone's fiancé, tries to reason with his father. He argues that people of Thebes sympathize with Antigone and that her actions were noble. However, Creon refuses to listen, believing that his authority must be upheld. As Antigone is led to her tomb, she laments her fate and the unjust law that has condemned her. Despite the efforts of the blind prophet Tiresias, who warns Creon of the consequences of his actions, Creon remains resolute. Remember Tiresias, who was a blind seer and who came to Oedipus to tell him the truth about his real identity. He was a blind seer and he didn't like the hubris and pride of Oedipus Rex. Same is the case here. In Creon's matter, Tiresias warns him too that he was also showing hubris and he was defying the god's law. However, as the play progresses, Creon faces opposition and warnings from various characters, including his own son Haemon, who is engaged to Antigone, and the blind prophet Tiresias. Tiresias warns Creon that his decision will bring disaster and sufferings to Thebes, citing signs and omens that indicate the god's displeasure. Haemon also tries to reason with his father, urging him to reconsider and avoid causing unnecessary sufferings. Despite these warnings, Creon remains stubborn and refuses to change his decision. However, after Tiresias' prophecy is fulfilled and bad omens occur, Creon finally relents and decides to bury Polynices properly and free Antigone. Unfortunately, it is too late, and Antigone has already taken her own life in her prison tomb. Creon's change of heart comes too late to prevent the tragic consequence of his actions, and he is left to face the devastating aftermath of his decision. Ultimately, Antigone takes her own life rather than face a slow death in the tomb. She hangs herself up. On the other side, Haemon tries to save Antigone. Haemon finds Antigone's body and in grief, he kills himself in front of his father. When Creon's wife, Eurydice, learns of her son's death, she takes her own life as well. Creon is left to mourn the loss of his family, realizing too late the error of his ways. I am unable to understand why in the Greek tragedies people just find it easier to take their lives. Okay, whatever. The story of Antigone is a powerful exploration of the conflict between individual conscience and state authority, as well as the devastating consequence of pride and stubbornness. Antigone's bravery and conviction have made her a legendary figure in literature, symbolizing the enduring power of moral principle. The play touches on the idea that fate can be unavoidable and characters' actions are influenced by their predetermined paths. Creon's refusal to listen to reason and his insistence on upholding his law at all costs lead to tragic consequences. The play raises questions about what is morally right and wrong and whether individual actions can be justified against unjust laws.